Dawn mist sits low over the farmland northeast of Vovchansk. A Russian armored column, 14 vehicles, 2 T-72B3 tanks anchoring the front, a mix of BMP-2s and MTLB carriers strung behind them, pushes west, along what the crew commanders have decided is the safe route. The road they were assigned is mined. Everyone knows it, so the column swings south, off-road, cutting through open fields that look, on any standard map, like nothing at all. Ukraine's general staff had been watching that exact ground for weeks. A single Mavic 3T recon drone, operating at roughly 400 meters altitude, has already transmitted GPS coordinates for every vehicle. The drone operator's tablet shows 14 heat signatures moving in column formation at approximately 15 kilometers per hour. The column is not hiding. It has no idea it needs to. This is how a detour becomes a trap. And this is how Ukraine mapped it before the column ever moved. What makes this engagement worth studying is not just the outcome, though open-source trackers and OSINT-confirmed footage document the outcome in detail. It's the decision architecture behind it. Ukraine did not react to the column's movement. Ukraine had anticipated the movement. The column chose the detour because it was the rational choice. Ukraine had bet, weeks earlier, that Russian commanders would make exactly that rational choice. The trap was not the minefield. The trap was the detour itself. Here is how a $500 drone and a Bradley fighting vehicle rewrote the calculus of a $20 million armored push. In recent weeks, the Vovchansk sector in northeastern Kharkiv Oblast has been one of the most contested corridors on the entire front line. Russian forces have been probing the area persistently. OSINT-confirmed footage from the sector shows almost daily armored movement along a network of rural roads and field tracks connecting Russian-controlled ground to a cluster of settlements Ukraine still holds. The strategic logic from the Russian side is straightforward. Control the high ground and the road network around Vovchansk, and you threaten Ukrainian logistics for a significant stretch of the northeastern front. But the terrain around Vovchansk is not forgiving to armored columns. The road network is sparse, the fields are soft in wet weather, and the Ukrainians have spent months cataloging every viable route. Open-source researchers tracking the sector note that Ukrainian forces have developed what analysts describe as a route prediction methodology. They identify the 2 or 3 paths any attacking column would logically take, seed the primary paths with mines or anti-vehicle obstacles, and then pre-position strike assets on the secondary paths. The logic is cold and deliberate. Make the primary route dangerous. Wait for the column to pick the secondary route. The secondary route is the kill zone. A cost note that frames what follows. A Mavic 3T commercial drone configured for reconnaissance costs roughly $1,500 to $2,000. An FPV strike drone with a shaped charge warhead runs approximately $400 to $600. A single BMP-2 infantry fighting vehicle costs Russia in the range of $600,000 to $800,000 to produce and field. A T-72B3 with modern upgrades runs well over $2 million. The arithmetic of this engagement, before a single shot is fired, already tells most of the story. The Ukrainian drone team tracking the column hits its first complication approximately 8 minutes into the operation. The Mavic's video feed degrades. Partial signal loss, likely from Russian EW equipment operating in the area. The operator cannot confirm whether the column has deviated further south or is continuing on the projected course. For 90 seconds, the team is flying partially blind. This is the moment that could break the ambush. If the column angles further south than predicted, the Bradley element in the tree line to the west will have the wrong firing solution. The entire engagement plan was built around a predicted route, and the route is now uncertain. The team switches to a backup frequency. The feed recovers. The column is exactly where the model said it would be. The Russian vehicles are moving through a field that Ukrainian forces had designated, on their internal planning maps, as Intercept Zone 4. The name is not glamorous. The outcome will be Here is what the column's commanders did not know. Ukrainian forces had placed ground sensors, simple vibration and acoustic detectors, along the likely approach routes 3 weeks earlier. The sensors had been transmitting movement data each time Russian patrols or vehicles crossed the monitored ground. By the time this particular column began its movement, Ukrainian planners already had a behavioral model. They knew the approximate speed Russian columns traveled on this terrain. They knew the preferred approach angles. They had, in effect, profiled the route before the column existed. What happened next rewrites the column's fate entirely. The Bradley element, 1 M2A2 ODS Bradley infantry fighting vehicle, is positioned in a tree line approximately 900 meters west of the column's projected path. The Bradley's 25mm M242 Bushmaster chain gun has an effective range against lightly armored targets of roughly 1,500 meters. Against BMP-2 class vehicles at 900 meters, it is, in the assessment of Western military analysts who have reviewed similar engagements, essentially a precision instrument. The Bradley has been in position since before dawn. Its engine has been cold. It has not moved. The FPV team is separate, 3 operators, positioned in a concealed firing position approximately 600 meters from the projected column path. They are carrying 8 drones. Each drone is a first-person view strike platform, carrying a warhead equivalent to a single RPG round. Against unprotected top armor, the weakest point on any vehicle in this column, the warhead is sufficient. The operators have pre-programmed GPS waypoints for the entry corridor. They are not improvising. They are executing a plan that was written before the column left its staging area. Here is the tactical question this engagement forces. The Russian column has 2 tanks at the front. The Bradley and the FPV team cannot engage simultaneously without coordinating their sequencing. If the FPV drones attack first, the column will disperse or reverse, potentially putting the vehicles out of the Bradley's optimal engagement corridor. If the Bradley fires first, the column halts and the vehicles begin defensive maneuvers, making FPV targeting harder. Someone has to go first, and the choice changes the outcome. Sit with that decision for a moment. Put yourself in the position of the Ukrainian strike coordinator. One person, watching 14 vehicle icons on a tablet screen, with a narrow window before the column either exits the kill zone or a Russian drone spots the Bradley's position. The answer, in this engagement, was neither pure option. The Mavic drone conducting reconnaissance was retasked. It descended to approximately 150 meters and began a slow orbit over the lead tank, not to attack, but to force a reaction. Russian crews, trained to respond to low-altitude drone presence, began to slow and scan for threats. The column compressed, the vehicles closed interval. In tightening their formation to present a smaller target to the drone above, the column's commanders had actually maximized the density of the target array for the assets they hadn't seen. The Bradley fired first. 2 short bursts from the Bushmaster at 900 meters, targeting the lead BMP-2, immediately behind the 2 tanks. The 25mm rounds penetrate the vehicle's side armor cleanly. The vehicle stops. It begins to smoke. The column does exactly what the engagement plan predicted. It halts. The trailing vehicles brake hard. Several begin to angle, attempting to reverse or find cover. In doing so, they slow, they bunch, and they expose their thinner top and rear armor to the sky above them. The FPV team launches. The first drone is airborne, in under 3 seconds. It is flying at an estimated 120 to 130 kilometers per hour on a pre-plotted approach vector. The warhead is a single-shaped charge RPG equivalent. The drone closes the 600 meters in approximately 18 seconds. The operator sees the target vehicle, a BMP-2 that has angled left and stopped, filling the feed screen. The drone hits the vehicle's upper rear deck. The vehicle does not survive the impact. The second drone is already airborne. It targets a different vehicle, an MT-LB carrier that has attempted to reverse east. back toward the column's entry point. The MTLB is lightly armored, designed for logistics and personnel transport, not for receiving direct hits. The FPV closes from behind. The warhead strikes the rear compartment. OSINT-confirmed footage reviewed by open-source analysts shows, at minimum, 3 separate vehicles in the kill zone, producing secondary explosions consistent with ammunition or fuel ignition. The engagement is not over. The tanks, the 2 T-72B3s at the column's front, are still operational. They are the hardest problem in the kill zone. The Bradley's 25mm ammunition is not rated to penetrate T-72 frontal armor at this range. The FPV drones, with RPG-equivalent warheads, need top attack geometry to be effective against main battle tank armor. And the tanks are now moving, pushing forward, away from the burning vehicles behind them, attempting to break out of the kill zone to the west. This is the moment where the engagement plan had its most critical branch. Ukraine's General Staff, in published operational briefings, has emphasized the integration of drone relay networks with ground-based anti-tank assets. In practice, in an engagement like this one, that means a second asset. A Stugna P anti-tank guided missile system, positioned approximately 1,800 meters to the south, had been pre-registered on the western exit route of the kill zone. If the tanks broke west, they were braking toward a pre-aimed system. The first tank pushes hard for the tree line to the west. It is moving fast, throwing mud from its tracks, and for approximately 40 seconds it looks like it may exit the engagement zone intact. The Stugna P operator has a thermal sight. The tank's exhaust and engine heat signature are clear. The Stugna P fires. Range: approximately 1,400 meters. The missile, a Ukrainian-produced laser beam rider with a tandem-shaped charge designed to defeat reactive armor, tracks to the target. It strikes the tank's rear deck, above the engine compartment. The T-72B3 stops. It does not immediately burn, but it does not move again. The second tank reverses. It pushes east, back through the column's debris, attempting to break out the way the column entered. 2 FPV drones are redirected. The first misses. The tank's defensive countermeasures, possibly smoke grenades, disrupt the operator's visual feed at a critical moment. The second drone does not miss. The warhead strikes the tank's upper turret ring. Not a guaranteed kill, but sufficient to disable the vehicle's main gun and, as subsequent OSINT footage suggests, to wound or incapacitate the crew. One vehicle in the column survives the engagement intact. It is a single MTLB logistics carrier positioned at the extreme rear of the column. When the firing began, its driver did not halt and did not attempt defensive maneuver. The driver accelerated east immediately and did not stop. The vehicle exits the kill zone before any FPV asset can be retasked to intercept it. That decision, instant reversal without waiting for orders, is the only reason the vehicle survives. It is worth noting because it represents a lesson Russian forces have been absorbing, slowly and expensively, over months of engagements like this one. The instinct to halt and assess when under fire is tactically sound in most conventional contexts. In a drone-enabled kill zone, halting is how you die. If you have been tracking this conflict seriously, you already see the pattern forming. Subscribe. We break down a new frontline engagement every week, mapping exactly how these tactics evolve. Western military analysts reviewing the documented aftermath of this type of engagement note something the raw footage does not capture: the planning depth. A column avoiding a known minefield and choosing a field route is doing the rational thing. The rational thing is also, in this case, the predicted thing. Ukraine's tactical teams, according to reporting from analysts tracking the Kharkiv sector, have reached a level of route prediction accuracy that makes the secondary route, the safe route, as dangerous as the primary one. The column chose the detour because it was smart. Ukraine had bet on smart. Here is the operational truth this engagement illustrates. Modern combined arms defense does not require numerical superiority. It requires information superiority and pre-positioning. The Ukrainian element that conducted this engagement was smaller, lighter, and cheaper than the force it engaged. It won because it knew, in advance, where the column would be. The column did not know it was being watched. It did not know the field was pre-targeted. It did not know the Stugna P was already aimed at its exit route. It knew none of this, and that information gap cost it 10 vehicles and both of its main battle tanks. Open-source trackers, including Oryx, document Russian armored vehicle losses in this conflict now running into the thousands, a scale of attrition with no modern precedent since 1945. Each engagement, like the one outside Vovchansk, is, individually, a small data point in that larger count. Collectively, they represent a systematic degradation of Russia's armored warfare capacity that Western defense analysts describe as strategically irreversible on any timeline shorter than a decade of full industrial mobilization. What this engagement cost Ukraine, by the estimates available through OSINT analysis of comparable operations: several FPV drones at roughly $500 each, operating time for the Mavic reconnaissance platform, one Stugna P missile at approximately $20,000 to $30,000, and the time and positioning cost of the Bradley element. The Bradley itself was not damaged. It withdrew from the tree line after firing and was not located by Russian counter-battery or drone reconnaissance during or after the engagement. The exchange ratio, Russian armor destroyed versus Ukrainian assets expended, is the core arithmetic of this war's ground phase. For Russia, that ratio gets worse with each iteration. There is a detail from the after-action analysis of this engagement that doesn't sit right, even accounting for the tactical success. The MTLB that escaped, the vehicle at the rear that reversed immediately, carried, according to reporting from analysts tracking Ukrainian intercept data, communications equipment. It was, in the column's order of march, the signals vehicle. The crew of that vehicle had real-time situational awareness from the column's own communications net. They knew what was happening the moment the Bradley opened fire. They left. The rest of the column did not have that same picture. The crew commanders in the forward vehicles were operating on fragmentary, degraded information in the seconds after the first shots. They halted. They assessed. They died. The signals vehicle survived because it had information. Every other vehicle in that column died, in part, because it didn't. That asymmetry, not just in drones or missiles, but in the quality of real-time information available to individual crews, is the deepest lesson this engagement offers. What strikes us about cases like this one is the degree to which the outcome was determined before the engagement began. Ukraine's advantage here is not primarily technological. Russia fields capable electronic warfare, capable reconnaissance drones, capable tank systems. The advantage is organizational and procedural, the willingness to pre-position assets based on predicted enemy behavior, to treat the enemy's rational choices as exploitable, to build the kill zone before the target arrives. That is a doctrinal posture. It is harder to counter than any specific weapon system. Russia's tactical adaptation, crews learning to reverse immediately rather than halt, columns learning to avoid predictable routes, is real and documented. OSINT researchers tracking the sector note that Russian column behavior has changed measurably in recent months. Intervals between vehicles are wider. Movement is more frequently conducted at night. Columns more often send a single scout vehicle ahead before committing the main body. Each of these adaptations is rational. Each was also, at some point, a lesson paid for in armor. The field northeast of Vovchansk is quiet now. The burning vehicles cool over hours. Satellite imagery reviewed by open-source analysts in the days following the engagement confirms the locations of the destroyed vehicles, consistent with the projected intercept zone Ukraine had mapped weeks earlier. Somewhere in a Russian operations center, the after-action assessment of this movement is being written. It will note the loss of 14 vehicles. It will note that the column chose a field route to avoid mines and was engaged on that route. It will not fully account for the weeks of sensor data, route prediction modeling, and pre-positioning that made the engagement possible. It will describe the outcome as bad luck, or as a failure of reconnaissance, or as an intelligence failure. It was not bad luck. It was the result of a system that understood Russian decision-making well enough to build a trap the column would choose to walk into. That is not a tactical lesson. That is a strategic one. And it is being applied, right now, across dozens of sectors on a 1,200-kilometer front line. Here is the question this engagement leaves open, and it is worth sitting with. If the rational choice consistently becomes the predicted choice, at what point does rationality itself become a vulnerability? The column chose the detour because it made sense. Ukraine counted on it making sense. If Russia internalizes that lesson deeply enough, if Russian commanders begin systematically choosing the irrational route, does that actually make them harder to predict? And if so, does it make their own operations less coherent? The adaptation that saves you from one kill zone may be the adaptation that costs you operational effectiveness everywhere else. Comment below. Do you think Russian tactical adaptation has been fast enough? Or is the organizational depth of Ukraine's ISR strike integration now beyond the ability of tactical level changes to counter? The engagement near Vovchansk is one data point. The pattern it represents is not.